Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Ragnaroll, and is from Endgame Games. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. When the project launches, I'm going to have a link at the bottom of your screen now, and then at the end of the video, and then down in the description section of the video, that link is going to take you to the official page. You can find out more information than I could possibly tell you here, and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, what is Ragnaroll? This is a competitive game for 2 to 5 players. You and the other players take control of a group of Vikings who are in the midst of a horrific winter that the prophets have said is the precursor to the Ragnaroll. This is this game's version of Ragnarok, the end times, where all the Viking warriors will come together in a massive epic battle under the eyes of Odin to end it all once and for all in death and glorious battle. But in the meantime, you are stuck in this winter, and you are trying to survive to get to that battle with your winter stores of food dwindling. But you do notice that your rival players have winter stores, so you know what that means. Better to die in glorious battle than to starve to death. So what this game means mechanically is that you're going to have these Viking warriors represented by dice, hence the Ragnaroll name, that you will be rolling in combat against the other players in order to take out their Vikings, but also in order to get their winter stores and hopefully make it to the end of the game, to Ragnaroll. And in the meantime, try to meet the victory condition of either getting the most glory or being the last Viking left standing, so on and so forth. Let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game is played with a prototype version of the game, so some things may change in the final version, just keep that in mind. Then we're going to come back, I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, let me run you through Ragnaroll. This is a competitive game for 2 to 5 players. The goal of the game is, well, there's several different victory conditions, actually. One of them, in fact, is optional. You're going to have these victory condition cards that you will lay out at the start of the game. The glory victory is actually the optional one, but you could have the last Viking standing, which is to say that you win if you are the only player with human Vikings left alive after the feeding phase of the game. Or Ragnaroll, the final battle. If all players have run out of stores or all human Vikings are dead after the feeding phase, you flip your resource mat and it is time for the final battle, which I will explain in a few minutes. Or if you use the optional glory victory, you win if you meet or beat the glory goal on your hero mat, and you have to have at least one Viking left alive. Speaking of the player mat, every player is going to get 2 different mats at the start of the game. You're going to get your player mat, and then you're going to get a more general mat that not only has some reminders about the gameplay, but it's also where you're going to store your food stores, where you put your dice at the beginning of the game, and also whenever you're assigning defenders, or when returning raiders are coming back, or when your dice, your Vikings, have been wounded, you'll put them here as well. As far as the actual player mat, in addition to your character artwork and name, you're going to have your Path to Glory condition. Now, the top part of the Path to Glory condition is the same for everyone, which is to say that whenever you have one of your Vikings is lost or slain, you're going to gain a glory. Glory are the red cubes, and they are not only a potential victory condition, but they are also what you're going to use to fuel some of your powers. Everyone also has a specific, every character has a specific glory condition. In the case of Freya, she gains glory when she successfully raids, and gains a glory when an opposing Viking is slain whenever they're battling Freya. Next, just like I mentioned a second ago, you have the battle abilities, and these are what you're going to spend your glory on. For instance, Freya's Be a Hero ability says that you can change Freya to a result of your choice. Freya, in this case, being the hero die. Every player has a hero die that represents their hero. Then you have Rally, which says reroll up to 2 of your Vikings. And Cleave, reroll up to 4 of your Vikings. If an opponent's shield blocks one of your double axe results, the Viking with the shield result is slain after combat is resolved. Now, down at the bottom of the player mat, you have a couple of different things. First off, you have your starting glory, and then you have your glory goal, which if you are playing with the glory victory condition, that is the number of glory you need to reach in order to win the game, and also have at least one Viking alive. But also at the bottom is death. This may happen. You are going to have your hero get killed during the course of the game. Sometimes it just happens. And in this case, they have a special ability that they get to do when they die. for Freya, it's if she's slain in battle, you can slay an opposing Viking without spending any axes. And then they all say that when they're dead, you flip over their player mat, and this is their Freya's the player revenge side, in this particular case, Freya's revenge side. But you'll notice that her abilities change as well. So for instance, for Freya, her path to glory becomes only that if her Vikings are slain or lost, she gains glory. She gets Rabble Rally, reroll her Vikings. You may choose which Vikings to reroll, but you must keep the new result. And the return is what all of the Viking warriors have, which is to say that your hero, if you spend 5 glory, your hero returns, you take your hero dice back from Valhalla and flip the mat back over, and if she returns in battles, you roll the hero and add it to your fighting forces, and then you can do your battle abilities as normal. And then the ever-pleasant everybody's dead, which is that if all of your Vikings are dead, if you don't return, you gain a glory at the beginning of the round. Also notice that your glory condition is higher, your glory goal, if you are doing that victory condition. The last thing in the general player area, last couple of things, you have a little cheat sheet card here which will remind you of some of the basic rules of the game as you play. You also have another optional module to add to the game, which is Odin's Pity, which is recommended when you're playing with more players. It's sort of a way, if you're successfully rated too many times, if you think that's going to happen to a certain player too many times, you'll use these cards. So when you are successfully rated, you'll flip over the card, and when you're rated, you gain a glory, and you take a glory from your opponent, and then you'll flip the card back over. So it's just a little catch-up mechanism for when you have too many players and you don't want one player to get pounded on too much. And of course, there are several other characters for you to choose from, just to show you some of their really cool artwork, even though it may be upside down or sideways. But yeah, really nice artwork in the game. And just as a reminder, this is the stock of glory cubes, and these are the winter stores. As I mentioned this in my intro, all this is happening during winter when you have to protect your vital foodstuffs. Other components in the game, you have the initiative card when a raid is about to happen or when people are preparing for a raid. Whoever seizes the initiative card, and I'll explain more about that in a moment, is going to get to choose how the sequence of ratings is going to happen. They'll choose who goes first and who goes second and so on and so forth. The fate cards. The fate cards are going to influence the course of battle. You're going to flip one over at the start of each round, and there's different difficulty levels of fate cards that are not some of them not recommended for use if you're playing with too many players or if you're inexperienced with the game. But let me go ahead and show you a few of these fate cards just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. You have cards like the Gods Are Crazy, which says you gain 2 glory when you lose a battle. Raids on undefended halls do not count as battles. You have the Underdog, gain 2 glory at the start of a battle if you are outnumbered. Remember, these cards affect everybody. Or if you have the same amount of Vikings in a battle as your opponent, but more dogs, which are one of your dice. You have Snowfall. You do not benefit from your path to glory this round. Gain 3 glory for winning a battle and 1 glory for each of your Vikings that are slain or lost. This is a 2-skull card. The skulls at the bottom will tell you how difficult the card is to use in the game. And here's an example of the dreaded 3-skull cards, the Beached Whale. Place this card in the play area as a new location and add 3 stores for each player in the game. This location may be raided, with raiders taking 1 store for each raiding Viking. At the end of the round, discard all leftover stores and place this in the discard pile. Next, I'm going to show you your proud Viking warriors represented by dice. Each player is going to get the same set of dice representing these different warriors. The white die represents your hero, the 2 red dice represent your berserkers, the 2 yellow dice represent your shield maidens, and the 8-sided die represents your dog. Now, amongst all of these dice, you're going to have several different symbols that are going to pop up in different quantities depending on the die. So there's axes and double axes, which obviously are going to be used in combat. And every die has those, but some just have more than others. So for instance, the Berserkers have 2 double axes and 2 single axes, whereas the Shield Maidens just have 2 single axes. But the Shield Maidens have 2 shields, and the Berserkers have none. So you have to decide which warriors are going to be best in what situation. You also have eyes, which represent the favor of the gods, and you have snakes, which represent the trickster god Loki interfering with the battle. And again, these things are going to pop up in different quantities depending on the die. Alright, so let me run you through how a turn is going to work in the game. At the start of a round, the first thing you do is flip over one of the fate cards, and everyone gets to see what that is, and it's going to affect the entirety of the round. When it gets to the next round, that card is going to be discarded, assuming all effects have been resolved on it, and then you're going to get a new one out. Next, each player is simultaneously going to decide which of their dice are going to be raiders and which of them are going to be defenders. In other words, which dice you're going to be using to attack and which dice you're going to be leaving behind to keep yourself safe. And how you're going to do this is you're going to take your dice and secretly put as many as you want of any type in each hand. So the ones that you put in your right hand, you are signifying that you want those to be your raiders for the round. The ones that you put in your left hand are going to be your defenders. So you'll secretly make this decision. Everyone will put their hands on the table, and they will simultaneously reveal which ones are the raiders and which ones are the defenders. Once the big reveal happens simultaneously, whoever has submitted the least amount of dice, Viking Warriors, for the raiding side gets to take the initiative card. They have a fast fleet force, and therefore they are able to make use of the initiative more wisely, and they'll be able to set the tenor for the round. However, if there is a tie for whoever has submitted the least Viking Warriors for the raid, then once the big reveal happens, you have to immediately try and grab the initiative card before the other tied player does. So it's first come, first serve. Everyone's going to be reaching for that. If you grab it in error, meaning you really didn't have the least and you grab the initiative card, that's seen as pretty dishonorable and you're going to lose a glory. So next thing you do is the rating. Depending on who has the initiative card, they're going to decide who's going to go first. Now let me go ahead and explain what all of those dice do with all of their different abilities. First off, you have the eye, which represents the potential favor of the gods. If only one eye was rolled in the entire battle, meaning on your side and the opponent's side, then that represents the favor of the gods of Odin himself, and you are allowed to not only re-roll the eye, but also one of your other dice. However, if more than one eye has come up on counting both sides of the battle, then the gods are confused, and all you do is re-roll that single die that came up. And you do not get another re-roll if you happen to be the only one with an eye after that. Of course, are the axes. There are single axes and double axes. Axes just count as 2 single axes. These determine whether or not you're going to win the battle. For as many axes as you win by, you get to kill opposing Vikings. Also, if you're the one doing the raiding, in other words, you're the attacker and not the defender, then you can either kill Vikings or I should say, because you might have enough to do both if you want, but you can also raid stores. Now, obviously, that's not something the defender can do because they're not the one actually doing the raiding. However, shields are going to be able to block out those axes. One shield can cancel either an axe or 2 double axes. It doesn't matter. Essentially, a shield is canceling out an axe die. Now, daggers are essentially an instant kill against a Viking. You can only use it to kill Vikings, and it actually goes right through shields. However, you must still determine the winner of the battle, and then after you resolve that with the axes and the shields, then you determine which of the opposing Vikings you're going to slay. And finally, you have the snake symbol. The snake symbol represents Loki interfering with the battle. If you're defending, any Viking that has a snake's results is wounded. You put them in the wounded area onto your playmat. If you are the raider, however, the Viking wanders off from the battle and they are lost at the end of the battle. You put them into Valhalla, which is just out of the game in the center of the play area. So with that in mind, let's just run through how a battle sequence would work. If you're the raiding player, first off, you're going to choose which of your opponents you're actually going to raid. Then, let's say I'm attacking the player over here. Both players are going to roll all of their dice. Actually, this one was one of my characters here. Roll all the dice. And then each player is going to have the chance to use one and only one of their battle abilities. It starts with the defender, then it goes back to the attacker, and they each have a chance to use their ability. And whether they do or they don't, then you move on to actually resolving the dice, starting with the gods intervening. So if there is an eye on any of the dice, at least one, then you may potentially get a reroll with another one. If not, if there's more than one eye, players just reroll those dice and keep going. Next, you're going to compare any shield results. So in this case, there actually is a shield, which that player is going to use to cancel out one of these axes. And on this side, there's also a shield, which they're going to use to cancel out this double axe. Now, just for simplicity's sake, just to show you what a winning battle would be like, let's say that this die that was rolled was actually another axe. That puts it at 3 axes to only 2 for the opponent, so that person wins the battle. Now, for every axe that is over, in this case 1, that person can kill one of the Vikings. So we'll go ahead and say, since these Vikings are going to go away because they have snakes on them anyways, we'll go ahead and kill this Viking, which is going to be put into Valhalla, and you'll check you'll get glory, of course, based on your Path of Glory condition. And alternatively, as a raider, I could have just not killed that Viking and instead taken one of the cubes from representing the winter stores and put that into my stock as well. Actually, you put the stores off to the side just in case one of the other players tries to raid you on the same turn. Those cubes are safe; they cannot be taken away from you because your Vikings are bringing them back home. After every player has had the opportunity to raid, then it is time for the feeding phase. This is where you feed your warriors who are in danger of freezing and starving to death. You have to spend one winter store for every Viking that you want to keep. If you can't feed them, you can dismiss them and let them go, but they are going to die and go to Valhalla, and nobody's going to get any glory for that. Alternatively, as a last resort, and please don't do this, you can feed the dog to your Vikings in order to keep them alive. One dog or one winter store will feed one Viking. In fact, if you have wounded Vikings from the previous raid, then you can, once you feed them, they will go back into your available stock because they feel rejuvenated. After feeding, assuming no one has met their victory condition, then the game continues. You're going to get rid of the old fate card, put a new one out, and then players are going to get ready to determine their new rating order again based on what dice they put in each hand. You're going to keep doing this until one player is the clear winner. Now, there is one last thing that may happen in the game, and it gives the game its name, actually, and that is Ragnaroll. This is going to happen when all players run out of stores, or if all human Vikings are dead. And this is one last glorious battle where all players are going to roll all of their Vikings and see who can get the most axes. They'll also have a chance to use their battle abilities as well, but shields, daggers, and snakes just don't matter, although you will still resolve the eye dice. Whoever comes out with the most axes at the end of the battle is going to be the winner of Ragnaroll. That's a brief rundown of Ragnaroll. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. You know, theme is everything in a game like this, and the Viking theme is certainly becoming more and more popular over the last couple of years, but that's why it's so interesting to see a game that takes that Viking theme and goes in a completely unique direction with it, to make it into a dice rolling game that isn't just like, you know, roll dice and, you know, compare symbols and that's that. In this game, there are a lot of other things to flesh it out to make it really feel like these are Viking warriors. In fact, it feels like you're just cutting out the middleman of having miniatures and standees, and boom, there's the dice, they're the warriors, they represent their own fate. You know, you are comparing, you know, swords to shields and things like that, but also they are representing your, you know, there's the hero die representing your character and the glory that they can spend on their own special abilities. They can get killed, they can wander off because they're lured by the trickster god, and they each represent a different type of faction in your Viking army, the berserkers, the shield maidens, the dogs. So it really, you know, ties in together strongly with that theme, as well as raiding the other players and trying to get their winter stores, just like you would imagine Vikings would be, whether fictional Vikings or, you know, real world Vikings. They're constantly fighting and trying to gain glory and welcoming death if that should be the case, especially when you tie that in with the whole dying and wanting to get revenge and possibly coming back from Valhalla. That kind of stuff really lends itself well to that theme. And then, you know, it's really helped along as well by the artwork of the game. Now, obviously, this was a prototype version, so I couldn't show you all the potential artwork that will be on the other characters that were not in the overview. But just based on what I showed you, hopefully you can tell it's going to have really, really stunning artwork, especially in the final version and with the finished dice and things like that. Speaking more about the mechanisms of the game, I do like the whole how combat works, and also how you do the initiative system and deciding which dice you're going to use as attackers and which you're going to use as defenders is really, you know, innovative and something I haven't quite seen before. And the rushing to get the initiative card, which will let you set the entire tenor of the raiding phase of the game, which can be crucially important when you get to the later stages of the game. So while this may be a very luck-dependent game in some instances, there is quite a bit of strategy here, deciding who you're going to raid, deciding whether or not it's best to just sit back and heavily defend your stuff rather than take the chance on raiding and putting everything into that and hoping that that works out for you, because you may go out and raid and get a bunch of winter stores and take out a lot of Vikings, but if all of your stuff has been taken away, it's a wash at least, and possibly worse for you. So you have to decide tactically when to press on, when to hold back. There are quite a few decisions to be made in the game, possibly leading up to a tremendous Ragnaroll battle, but hopefully you can win the game before that happens. There's interesting modules that can be thrown in, like the whole pity system, Odin's pity, but also the extra victory condition of going for the glory instead, which really changes the dynamic of the game even more and makes it even more of a resource management game. Do you spend your glory now for battle abilities, which can really help you out, but you're essentially giving up victory points at that point? So definitely something to consider there. So there's a lot of interesting things going on in this game. It's not just a dice chucking game. It is more of a strategy game. It's more of a tactical game. It's more of a thematic Viking game, much more than you might suspect. And of course, it's got great artwork to go along with it. And if any of those things or all of those things appeal to you, if you like the idea of a game with a Viking theme that is not only quick to learn and quick to play, but has just enough strategic bite to it, I would encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page for Ragnaroll. I'll have a link at the bottom of your screen now, and also down in the description section of the video. Go to the page, get more information, see if the game is right for you, and hopefully consider backing it on Kickstarter. That is Ragnaroll from Endgame Games. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.